Welcome, Pod.
Welcome back into TCM Pod. Chris Mathis, Spencer Mathis back here with you guys after nearly 3-week hiatus, if I'm not mistaken. Phil's going to be back. We're talking a lot about the NFL and what went down, what's transpired over the last couple of days, including the next big contract for an NFL quarterback. And it's a guy that I didn't expect was going to get paid before some other guys on this list of quarterbacks that could get paid. And it's Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not only did this guy get paid, he cashed out, and they treated him quite nicely there in Jacksonville, as he is now tied for the highest paid player in NFL history with a 5-year, $275 million contract. It includes a no trade clause, also matches the size of Joe Burrow's record deal contract out there in Cincinnati as well. So when I first saw the news, I thought, wow, Trevor Lawrence paid big. I thought it was a typo. I thought it was a fake bot account. I did a little research. There's multiple people tweeting about it, Ian Rappaport being one. I thought, all right, this is for real. I am a bit shocked that he got cashed out this much. However, can you really be shocked? Because it feels like that's just how the market works these days. That's just how it's going to be for nearly every quarterback moving forward, unless you're a guy like a veteran quarterback who's bounced around from town to town, and Baker Mayfield right here in Tampa Bay. Again, a very value steal for the Buccaneers, in my opinion. But Trevor Lawrence, paid big, highest paid quarterback in the National Football League over Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I think at this point in the NFL, if you draft a guy and he's anywhere near what could be your franchise quarterback, obviously he's had some issues, but they were 9-3 at one point last season before his little bit of injury that he had with his ankle. I think he had a shoulder injury as well sprinkled in there. And I watched him live at the Buccaneers Jaguars game, and it was 30-0 early in the third quarter, and they literally benched the guy. So obviously a great season last year for the start, at least for Trevor Lawrence, who was touted as one of the greatest quarterback prospects that we've ever seen. I mean, I think he was up there with what we saw with Andrew Luck, at least in terms of high school and college. So far in the NFL, I think he had the short of the stick to start his career, starting off with, of course, Urban Meyer as your head coach is never kind of what you want to go with. And I think he's handled it well. I do like Trevor Lawrence a lot. And again, he's only 24 years old. So you can't let a guy like that look at the open market next year whenever it would be his turn to snoop around. Instead, like you said, he becomes tied for the highest paid player in NFL history, and someone that we're not going to expect to reset the market will probably do the same thing next year after just 2 good seasons. And that's probably going to be Jordan Love next season. So I'm not too surprised with Trevor Lawrence getting re signed. But again, a lot of money, but I think each and every year that's going to continue to get topped in 3 years. If he turns out to be as good as he was supposed to be, if they can win a playoff game in Jacksonville again, it'll look like a bargain deal. Just 3 years down the road from now for Trevor Lawrence, who I think is a good quarterback. I think he'll really have a good season in Jacksonville this year. It's just really going to come down to, can he stay healthy? I think he's at that point where he's made that next level step. He's just got to have a full season under his belt of healthy football. And I really do believe the Jacksonville Jaguars can be a playoff team next season, of course.
And we know that Trevor is without his star wide receiver guy. We all expected a few things from coming off of suspension, and Calvin Ridley. He no longer with the Jaguars. So Trevor Lawrence does try to figure things out. He's trying to stay healthy. He's now paid more than Jared Goff, who got a 4-year, $212 million deal. Justin Herbert, 4 years, $262 million deal. Lamar Jackson, 4-year, $260 million deal as well. So when you say Trevor Lawrence makes more than Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and just as much as Joe Burrow, to me, that does sound kind of crazy, but I think it's all based on the market today. I don't think it's necessarily just that they think Trevor Lawrence is better than any of those guys. I can't say he is better than any of those guys, except for maybe Justin Herbert. However, you got to lock him down. As you said, you don't want him snooping around and looking for that next team, because he's still a young quarterback with a lot of potential. This guy's been flinging the rock since he was in the 8th grade at a high level there at Georgia High School and Cartersville High School, and was really, really good. We all know that he and Justin Fields, the same class, also played in Georgia at the same time, same high school recruiting class too, and Trevor Lawrence gets cashed out. I do have high expectations for Trevor Lawrence, and just after a couple of years, he's 5th all-time and wins in Jaguars history with 20 wins. That's crazy. 20 wins is 5th the most in franchise history. Over 11,000 passing yards. That's 4th most for Jacksonville franchise history. And 58 passing touchdowns, 4th most in Jaguar history. However, he does turn the ball over quite a bit. Several of those times came with Urban Meyer his rookie year, but he does have a turnover issue. And through his first 3 years, he has more turnovers than a guy by the name of Jameis Winston of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let that sink in for a little bit. Obviously, Jameis had a 30-30 year, his fourth year with the Bucs and Bruce Arians.
Yeah, I think the reason that they went out there, they gave Trevor Lawrence the big contract comes down to if it's not us, it's going to be somebody else next year. And he has that playoff win under his belt. If you can remember that gigantic comeback against a guy that is not a proven winner right now, Justin Herbert. He's got a regime change. He's really got to get going this year, but he also has already been handed that big contract. And they saw that. They saw Jared Goff get his contract, Baker Mayfield earlier off in this offseason. You just got to pay Trevor Lawrence and hope that it all works out for you because in the end, good quarterback play, even if it's the most expensive in the NFL, is a lot better than some of what these other teams have at the very bottom of the league. So Trevor Lawrence getting paid all the money, I think it makes sense. But again, is he a top 10 quarterback?
I don't know. I mean, you look at the list of quarterbacks. We were talking about it earlier, Spence. You got some of the top dogs, the top 4 to 5. You can't move, can't budge them at all down the line. But then you're looking at, 6, 7 through 10, 11, 12, and it's all kind of up for grabs. I feel like you're a guy who has it numbered as far as who's number 1 all the way to number 10 or 11 or 12. So before I talk about why Trevor Lawrence is not a top 10 quarterback and who is a top 10 quarterback, let's hear your list real quick.
Yeah, this list is mainly based off of your career, of course, but again, so many new quarterbacks in the NFL with a ton of potential. So you got to put that into this top 10 again. Some of these guys have been proven winners like Kirk O'Chains. Brock Purdy will not scratch my top 10. I can tell you that right now. A couple of these guys are proven winners, but do they have the talent? I think it's the team around them with some of these guys. And one of the guys in my list kind of reminds me of the guy that you just showed on the left in the previous picture next to Patrick Mahomes in terms of, hey, even in Brady's last season, you had to rank this guy within the top 10. And that's kind of what I did with a guy like Aaron Rodgers. So the top 4 are set in stone, a little bit interchangeable with number 2 and 3, but I think 4 is also set in stone. Goes Mahomes at number 1, Lamar Jackson number 2, Josh Allen number 3, and Joe Burrow number 4. And I think 5 through 10 even is shaky in today's NFL if you're looking at what can be and what has already been done. Got to look at the age as well. That's a huge factor unless you are Tom Brady. Even in his final season, it caught up to him. So for myself, I have Aaron Rodgers at that number 5 spot heading into next season. I think the Jets are going to be a good team next year. Obviously, he's not been showing up to training camp, which is a big story headline that we'll get into in a little bit. But Justin Herbert, number 6, based off of potential only. He's had some
Wow,
failures.
6?
Yeah, he's had a ton of failures, but I do like the signing of their new head coach. You have 2 Harbaughs back in the NFL again, and I think it's going to work out for Justin Herbert and the Chargers. CJ Stroud at number 7. He's going to be a very good NFL player, very good NFL quarterback, and I think he'll be around that by the time the season ends. I went Jared Goff at number 8. I have him above a guy like Jalen Hurts. I've got Goff at 8, Jalen Hurts at number 9, and then I found a way to sneak Trevor Lawrence into number 10 based off of potential and age. 24 years old. He's the same age as some of these quarterbacks coming into the NFL right now. And he's has that playoff win under his belt that a lot of these guys on this list may not. And CJ Stroud does already as well. It's Herbert who doesn't, and the guys below him as well that you kind of had to keep off the list. I kept Jordan Love, I think he's 11 or 12. Kirk O'Chains is 12 to 13. Dak Prescott and Matthew Stafford kind of round out the top 15 for me. And Baker Mayfield maybe at 15, looking at the outside end, maybe at 16. But again, those are my top 10. I snuck Trevor Lawrence in there. But by the end of next season, you may not see that. And it could just be me saying, hey, this guy just got paid, highest paid quarterback in NFL history. So far, it's worked out for these other teams that have paid their guy. So why not work out for the Jacksonville Jaguars if one of the greatest quarterback prospects of all time can stay healthy? It kind of sounds like we're talking about Andrew Luck, though, again, in the
Yeah.
year 2016, whenever he retired. I think it may have been 2018 after just 5 or 6 seasons in the NFL. Not going to say the same thing for Trevor Lawrence, but I've kind of got him in that same echelon, just without that proven winner mentality in Jacksonville that they've sneak into the playoffs once every 5 years, maybe even longer than that. And I think Trevor Lawrence is the guy once he really gets this undergoing with a new receiving core. You've lost Calvin Ridley, but I snuck Trevor Lawrence in the top 10. Who do you have in your top 10?
Did you have Jordan? Where was Jordan Love at? 11 to 12, you said?
11, yeah.
And what about Jalen Hurts? Where does he fit into this
I
puzzle
put
piece?
Jalen Hurts at number 9. He's made it to the Super Bowl. Obviously, team around him, but I have him higher than a guy like Brock Purdy, who was kind of carried by his team. I think Hurts has a lot more talent.
And where's Brock Purdy at on this list?
Brock Purdy's at he's in New Mexico.
Oh man, he's down there. You're
Yeah,
saying like worse than Baker.
yeah.
Wow,
I
that is
gotta
a
go with.
hot take. That's a
If
hot
you
take.
put
So
Baker
obviously,
Mayfield on the 49ers last year, we may have a Super Bowl champion.
ah man, maybe I don't know. I think that the Buccaneers letting him fling the ball down the field is what allowed him to be successful. I don't know if they would have done that in San Francisco. I don't know if they would have given him that leash that they
True.
did in Tampa Bay. I'll go Patrick Mahomes, no particular order for me. I'm going to keep it simple, keep it neat. Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott. Again, no
Ooh,
particular order. I'm
okay.
not saying Dak's number 6 or anything. Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 quarterbacks right here, right now that I value higher than Trevor Lawrence. Didn't even mention Tua Tagovailoa. I would probably throw Tua in the fold just below Trevor Lawrence. I do like Tua as far as what he's done so far, but I don't think his ceiling is as high as Trevor's. I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence a little higher. Kirk Cousins, I see what you're doing, shaking your chain there on the YouTube video and Spotify too. If you guys are listening, yeah, you can watch us right here, right now on Spotify too. Make sure to hit that follow button and leave a 5-star review as well. Kirk Cousins, I'll put just below a guy in Tua Tagovailoa simply because he's not very good in prime time. He's been good
Fair.
success-wise. He does win games, but not great in prime time. And also has come off an ACL injury at his ripe age of what, 34, 35?
36, 37.
36, 37, even better. So, yeah, I'm going to go with, you're looking at Kirk Cousins around 13, 14, Baker at 15. But there are 11, 12 guys better than Trevor Lawrence for me right here, right now. And I just named them off. No particular order. You guys can comment down below whose list is more accurate. Is it Spencer's? Is it mine? Are we both absolutely right? Are we both wrong? You guys comment your 1 through 10 down below in the YouTube comments, or simply say Trevor is or Trevor is not a top 10 NFL quarterback. He just got paid like a top 10 quarterback, got paid like a top 2 quarterback in the NFL, and is making more money than Patrick Mahomes does year in and year out, which sounds crazy to me. I don't have an issue with it because I think Pat Mahomes realizes that's a big reason why Tom Brady won all those rings. I think Patrick doesn't care about that. I think he wants to win football games, and he has so many other endorsements. I know T. Krez here at WDAE, I'm here at the iHeart radio station in Tampa Bay. I know he was saying that, Patrick's going to want more money and this and that. I don't know if he will. I think he wants to win football games, and he still has such a youthful roster. They haven't really been able to put that much money into that roster. They let Ladarius Need go. So I think he would much rather have those key players come back, win games, than to make a little bit more money salary-wise. So you had to pay Trevor. I don't know if you had to pay Trevor what Joe Burrow got. I don't. I think you could have paid him more what Jared Goff got. I do. 4-year, $212 million deal. But at the end of the day, when you looked at this guy and you see he's young, he's 24 years old, okay, I can't complain too much. I just need to see Trevor take it up a notch. I know he's banged up last year, but we must see more from Trevor Lawrence this year in Jacksonville. That's a guy who's getting paid like a top player, and he is a top quarterback, top 12, top 13. Is he top 10? Spencer thinks he is. But I don't know if he's a guy that you could say, hey, he's worth this much money in today's game. I really don't.
Yeah, it's shaky. The top 10 is, I think the first 7 are really good, pretty set in stone. And then 8 through 15 is kind of just a crapshoot. If you want to throw Brock Purdy in there, there's Brock Purdy believers like yourself, and Brock Purdy doubters like myself. Obviously, I think it's a system thing. We saw what happened whenever Jimmy Garoppolo left San Francisco last year, played for the Las Vegas Raiders, if you can remember that. A big free agency signing, and that's why you go out there and you sign a guy like Trevor Lawrence. You sign the guy that you've drafted that has been in your system for a couple of years. Even if Urban Meyer threw away your first season, I think T-Law's had a pretty good career, all things considered. But yeah, those turnovers that you mentioned earlier have been a big issue with him, and obviously not a top 5 guy. And I really don't think he will become a top 5 guy if you have Herbert and Stroud up there with the new guys. But I do think Trevor Lawrence just squeaks his way in to the NFL top 10 QBs.
We shall see how it all shakes out for T-Law this year. We won't say the phrase because, times have changed, but I do recall his rookie year in which you had a particular nickname for him, and the real listeners of TCM Pod will recall that. I know Mama, Sheila will know that. I'm sure Kevin will know that. Several will know that. Also, I feel like a guy maybe by the name of Ian Harkins might know that, or a couple of others out there that might keep up with that. But we come a long way. You've fallen more in love with Trevor Lawrence. He's earned your respect now. We won't go more into detail than that. But you talk about top 10. You talk about who could be top 5. We all know who number 1 is, and it's not the guy on the screen to the right there, the red. It's the guy on the left in the pewter helmet and the white jersey. Yeah, it's Tom Brady wearing the number 12. He was inducted into the New England Patriots Hall of Fame on, what was it, Wednesday or Thursday of this week, earlier this week. And they had that Hall of Fame ceremony. And he said, let it be known that he is a New England Patriot. I, Tom Brady, am a New England Patriot. A lot of people were rubbed wrong by that because he did come to Tampa Bay, finish out his career here in Tampa, won a Super Bowl in his backyard at Raymond James Stadium as well. I don't think there was a big deal for that at all. I don't. I think that he's both, but you're getting inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame. That's literally the only way to do it. Yes, of course, he is a Hall of Famer for the New England Patriots. They drafted him. They took a shot on him. Drew Bledsoe took an injury for him to take over and then rule the league and go down as the greatest of all time. So I have no issue here. What are your thoughts on Tom Brady's comments? I know a lot of people here in Tampa Bay were a little bit up in arms about that. I had no issue whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, you spend that many years with them, you win that many Super Bowls with one franchise, you win one in Tampa in 3 years. Altogether, if you look at percentage wise, Brady on the Buccaneers was better than he was in the Patriots over those 3 years. And those first 2 years were absolutely incredible. That's a 33% Super Bowl chance whenever you had Tom Brady on the Buccaneers. What was it in New England? I'm joking. Yeah, it just comes down to you've spent so much time in one area. You are getting inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame in front of
Yeah.
thousands of Bostonians. Of course, you're going to say, "Hey, I'm a Patriot for life," and he is. I mean, it's what he's going to go down in history as. In the Hall of Fame, his bust is going to be with the Patriots. But that's not to say that people aren't going to remember him as a Buccaneer. And I think people got a little bit too offended by those comments that he's going to be a Patriot for life.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the guy, he came to Tampa Bay his first year, won it all. And I had high hopes as a Buccaneer fan. Did not expect him to do that. I did not. I thought they would be a playoff contender, but I didn't even think they'd be guaranteed a playoff spot. New offensive coordinator, not my favorite offensive coordinator, a risky head coach, no run game with Ronald Jones as the lead back, Leonard Fournette peppered in there too. I just didn't think that they were going to do that much. He comes to Tampa Bay. He wins it all. They go in as a wild card team, win it all, run the table, win it in our very own backyard here at Raymond James Stadium. Cards and tables were stacked against him. The odds were against him, but it's Tom Brady. He could do it all, and he proved it. He came to Tampa Bay at the ripe age of, 42, 43 years old, won it all in year one, proved that he's the greatest. He could have ran off into the sunset, but no, he finished out that contract he had with the Buccaneers, had 2 more playoff runs to round out his playing career. You will remember Tom Brady for his time in Tampa Bay, and I think the Buccaneers will be remembered as the other team that got Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, to play for him. I never in my wildest dreams, pun there for Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, would have imagined that Tom Brady would be not only playing for another team aside from the Patriots, would be playing for my hometown team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and would make them a respectable contender year in and year out ever since. Makes me drop my mic every time I talk about it. Mic drop once again, but Tom Brady will go down in history as a Buccaneer too. He'll just have the bust as a New England Patriot.
And you can't forget 2021, snubbed of the league MVP by far. Aaron Rodgers did not deserve that award over Tom Brady. You look at the numbers, better in everything, passing yards, touchdowns, dominated. They really should have won that Rams game, but of course, Todd Bowles got a little bit too bold there at the end of that game. And that would have been one of the best playoff games in NFL history had that game gone to overtime instead. Ended the way it did. They say, hey, this is a regular season award, but it's really not. Obviously, these guys are obviously putting in, hey, how did they do in the playoffs? How far did they go? And that year, Rodgers went just a little bit further than Brady, and that's why he won the MVP. Tom Brady should have won an MVP in Tampa Bay. Instead, he was snubbed, and that could be a factor into why some people may not remember him years down the road. But it's not going to be as common as you think. You're going to say, hey, remember whenever Tom Brady was in Tampa? They're going to be like, of course I do. He literally won a Super Bowl against the second greatest quarterback at the time in NFL history, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And honestly, the Buccaneers had a pretty good roster, but it got bolstered because Tom Brady was here. If Tom Brady wasn't here, not only Tom Brady's magic, but the ability to bring in new
Oh
guys,
yeah.
new pieces, the Bucs wouldn't have been a playoff team. And now the expectation is to make the playoffs year in and year out. The Brady effect is for real. And Baker Mayfield, not the most successful quarterback in the NFL, but he came to Tampa Bay to follow up Tom Brady. Really didn't have too much pressure, at least he said. But when you're taking over the role of Tom Brady, you do feel the pressure to some degree. However, reality is nobody really expected much from Baker Mayfield last year. He came in,
Nope.
I'm sure he expected a lot. But aside from him and maybe one or two players, Mike Evans didn't expect too much from Baker last year. Boom, Bucs are in the playoffs. They're one of the better teams in the playoffs, just did not have a run game. So the winning effect, that Brady effect, is for real, and we witnessed it right here in Tampa Bay. It is one of the coolest things ever in all of sports, and it's something I'll never forget.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield last season, his career was on the line, and the Buccaneers said, hey, we saw what a proven leader can do. Let's go ahead and get another one. Obviously, he hasn't won as many games. He's been on pretty bad franchises. He's been with the Cleveland Browns, the Carolina Panthers, the Rams as well whenever they were terrible that year. And they went with a guy that can lead like Baker Mayfield can, like Tom Brady had before him. And now you're looking at the Buccaneers as the third team or the third most playoff appearances in the last,
Yeah.
10 years out of any NFL team. And that's because Tom Brady lit the torch the first 3 years. And I obviously the Buccaneers made it last season. And I think they're gonna make the playoffs again, whether it be winning the NFC South or a wild card, because the team in my opinion, has gotten better again, and that's thanks to Jason Light and taking a chance on a guy that's career could have ended if he would have not won the starting job over a guy like Kyle Trask. So Baker Mayfield was taken by the Buccaneers or signed by Tampa Bay because they wanted a guy in leadership similar to Tom Brady. If you talk to the offensive lineman like Tristan Wirfs, even Mike Evans, a wide receiver, he'll say the same thing. That it's a different type of leadership, but hey, that's what the Buccaneers look for, and they had it with Jameis Winston, great leader, not a great quarterback. You had it with Tom Brady, greatest quarterback of all time, the greatest leader of all time in football history, and the sports player, in my opinion, with the most aura of all time is Tom Brady. I mean, nobody strikes fear into the opposing team's eyes as much as Tom Brady did. And now
Yeah.
you got Baker Mayfield, who literally headbutts his own teammates without a helmet while they're wearing helmets. I mean, who would not be scared of a guy that's also willing to run over an NFL linebacker as well? I think it's a great stepping stone for the Buccaneers, and they obviously paid Baker Mayfield a lot of money, but Brady with the Buccaneers easily going to be remembered in 20 years. It's nothing like Joe Montana and the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion. I think that's more of a trivia question at this point. Hey, did you know Joe Montana was with the Kansas City Chiefs? I knew it, of course, but again, the average fan isn't going to know it. But the average fan 20 years from now is going to say, hey, we were all locked in our houses whenever Tom Brady won the Super Bowl. We were literally forced to watch this guy win a Super Bowl in his own backyard. They're going to remember that. And if you look back at Joe Montana with the Kansas City Chiefs, AFC Championship appearance, didn't win it, didn't make the Super Bowl. Tom Brady is just a different being, and he's past Joe Montana as the greatest quarterback slash player in NFL history at this point.
Without question, and I'm not sure anybody will ever surpass him. I really don't, even with the additional game or potential games added to the regular season, maybe statistically, but you'll never see a combination of all the statistics, all of the records, and more importantly, all the trophies that Tom Brady has racked up throughout his playing career. So it's been really cool. You talk about striking fear into his opponents. I got to interview Tom Brady a time or two post game at Raymond James Stadium. Dude, that was the most. I've asked thousands of questions with athletes from rec league all the way up to as big and successful as Tom Brady, Mike Evans. I mean, the list goes on and on. WWE wrestlers. There's nobody that's ever made me feel the way that Tom Brady made me feel. I was scared. I could feel my blood rush to my head. You could just tell that I was turning red because he just looked you dead in your eyes and you thought it was over. And you better ask a good question because he's heard all of them under the sun and 20 plus years of playing in the NFL. Now, rounding out TCM Pod here, we appreciate you guys. Aaron Rodgers, a no-show for mandatory minicamp this week with the New York Jets. Spence, I know you're a big Aaron Rodgers guy. What are your thoughts here? Is this a big deal? No deal whatsoever? I think it's a bad look for a guy who's the captain of this team, the veteran quarterback.
I don't think it's a big deal. I remember this being a storyline whenever he was having all those family issues. Danica Patrick had left him, and he was missing training camp all the time with the Green Bay Packers. Misses one, maybe even two at this point, with the New York Jets to start off training camp this year. I think it comes down to Robert Saleh making that public and saying unexcused absence for Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, everybody's gonna see that, but he said this is important to Aaron Rodgers. This is important in Aaron Rodgers' life, but it's an unexcused absence. I feel like he's kind of got that Vin Diesel approach, just a little bit too much, just a little bit too ruling by the book, in my opinion, is New York Jets head coach Robert Saleh. That's why he hasn't been very successful in his career. You saw how he talked about Zach Wilson last season. Zach Wilson was struggling, but my God, he didn't have to go in. He didn't have to go in on a guy like that when he was at his worst with an offensive coordinator. Yeah, with an offensive coordinator that has only had success with Aaron Rodgers. They kept him around for Rodgers. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, but again, it can be to the media, and of course, it's a story you're going to want to spin. But if you're Aaron Rodgers, you're looking at it this way. You know that this is going to happen if you miss a training camp practice. So why bring the negative light to you? It's just my one gripe with Aaron Rodgers right now. I think it's all going to work out for him. I've got him at number 5 in my top 10 just based off of legacy, based off of he's got the greatest throwing motion in NFL history. And I think he takes the Jets to the playoffs in a very loaded AFC.
That's hot right there. I just don't see it. I don't think he will. I honestly thought he was going to ride off into the sunset after that injury in week 1 for the Jets last year. He did not do so. I'm not okay with Aaron Rodgers missing this time. And you talk about he knew that this would all come back to bite him. People would talk about it. I think he loves the attention. He wants that. Whether he's going to admit that or not publicly, he wants people talking about him because let's be real, the guy hasn't been to the Super Bowl in what? Over a decade? So
yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time. And he obviously wants to be talked about in that limelight. He does have the greatest throwing motion of all time. I'll give him that. He is one of the most precise passers of all time. However, in terms of his success and legacy, it doesn't even stack up to Tom Brady. There's been a debate. We heard C.J. Stroud. He would take Eli Manning's career over Aaron Rodgers' career, just because the 2 rings over Tom Brady compared to just 1 from Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think Rodgers right now, though, is setting up the storyline. He's setting up the TikTok edits that are going to come at the end of the season. Whenever he's staring down Patrick Mahomes right at the start of that AFC Championship game, Jets and Chiefs, lock it in right now. Jets and Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And maybe Rodgers can make it back to the Super Bowl. If the Buccaneers are not there, I'd love to see it. Obviously, it's a long stretch to say the Buccaneers are going to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it, though, but I'd also love to see Aaron Rodgers. But again, that could be a stretch at this point in his career. And that's what, 2 days of practice now. Not great, but again, 15-year Hall of Famer. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Tom Brady missed a couple of training camp practices at some point in his career. But of course, that was during a Giselle divorce while his wife was cheating on him with their jiu-jitsu instructor. So a little bit of a different perspective, but we never really knew what Aaron Rodgers was doing. Is he running for vice president? Was he doing an ayahuasca week-long retreat in the dark? We'll never know, though. I don't think the world's ever going to know until November comes around and we see Aaron Rodgers on that vice president ballot card.
Wow. All right, we're going to end it right there. TCM Pod, Spencer Mathis bringing the heat today. As always, will Aaron Rodgers run for vice president? Comment down below. Peace.
Peace.